Hi there and welcome to our podcast. And this week at London Visited, we go to London and we go and look at the London Wall to tell you all about this iconic wall in London. My name's Steve and each week I'll bring to you the facts, history and information about different parts of this great capital. If you've been to London, are planning on visiting, live here or just love London from afar, then this is definitely the podcast for you. And as we can see, we have listeners all over the world, so a massive thank you to you. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, London Visited, to see videos covering this place and so many others across London. And now, to this week's podcast. The London Wall was a defensive wall first built by the Romans around Londinium, the strategically important port town on the River Thames in what is now known as London, and subsequently maintained until the 18th century. It is now the name of a road in the City of London, running along part of the course of the Old Wall between Wormwood Street and the Rotunda Junction where St Martin's le Grand meets Aldersgate Street. Until the later Middle Ages, the wall defined the boundaries of the City of London. Although the exact reason for the wall's construction is unknown, the wall appears to have been built in the late 2nd or 3rd century. This was around 80 years after the construction of the city's fort in 120, whose north and west walls were thickened and doubled in height to form part of the new city wall. The incorporation of the fort's walls gave the walled areas its distinctive shape in the northwest part of the city. It continued to be developed until at least the end of the 4th century, making it among the last major projects undertaken by the Romans before the Roman departure from Britain in 410. Reasons for its construction may have been connected to the invasion of the northern Britain by the Picts, who overran Hadrian's Wall in the 180s. This may be linked to the political crisis that emerged in the late 2nd century, when the governor of Britain, Claudius Albinus, was consolidating his power after the claiming the right of succession of the Roman emperor. After a struggle with his rival, Septimus Severus, Albinus was defeated in 197 at the Battle of Lugdunum near Lyon, France. The economic stimulus provided by the wall and Septiminus's subsequent campaigns in Scotland improved Londinium's financial prosperity in the early 3rd century. The wall's gateways coincided with their alignment to the British network of Roman roads. The original gates, clockwise from Ludgate in the west to Aldgate in the east, were Ludgate, Newgate, Cripplegate, Bishopsgate and Aldgate. Aldersgate, between Newgate and Cripplegate, was added around 350. Moorgate, initially just a post turn, was built later still, in the medieval period. The length and the size of the wall made it one of the biggest construction projects in Roman Britain. The completed wall, which had gateways, towers and defensive ditches, was built from Kentish ragstone, which was brought by barge from quarries near Maidstone. It was 2 miles long, enclosing an area of about 330 acres. It was 2.5 metres to 3 metres wide and up to 6 metres high. The ditch in front of the outer wall was 2 metres deep and up to 5 metres wide. There were at least 22 towers spaced about 64 metres apart on the eastern section of the wall. After Londinium was razed on several occasions by Saxon pirates in the late 3rd century, construction of an additional riverside wall began in 280 and repaired around 390. The existence of a riverside section of wall was long doubted due to a lack of evidence, but excavations at the Tower of London in 1977 showed that the section of the inner curtain wall between Longthorn and Wakefield Towers was originally the eastern part of the Roman riverside wall. The riverside wall would have limited commercial and other forms of access to the Thames, so may have reflected a diminished level of activity. It's not clear how long the riverside wall survived, but there are references to part of it near a dock of Queenhithe, in 2 charters of 889 and 898. There isn't currently any evidence of post-Roman restoration, so surviving sections are not likely to have been part, or an important part, of defences much after the Roman period. With the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, Londinium ceased to be the capital of Britannia, although Romano-British culture continued in the St Martin-in-the-Fields area until around 450. However, the defences must have retained some of their former formidable strength, because the Anglo Saxon Chronicle mentions the Romano-British retreated back to London after their bloody defeat at the Battle of Crayford in Kent, at the hands of the Hengist and Horsa leaders of the Saxon invaders. From around 500, an Anglo Saxon settlement known as Lundenwic developed in the same area slightly to the west of the old abandoned Roman city. By about 680, London had revived sufficiently to become a major Saxon port. However, the upkeep of the wall was not maintained, and London fell victim to 2 successful Viking assaults in 851 and 886. In 886, the King of Wessex, Alfred the Great, formally agreed to the terms of the Danish warlord. Guthrum concerned the area of political and geographical control that had been acquired by the insertion of the Vikings. With the eastern and northern part of England, with its boundary roughly stretching from London to Chester, the Scandinavians would establish Dane law. In the same year, the Anglo Saxon Chronicle recorded that London was refounded by Alfred. Archaeological research shows that this involved abandonment of Lundenvik and a revival of life and trade within the old Roman walls. This was part of Alfred's policy of building an in-depth defence of the Kingdom of Wessex against the Vikings, as well as creating an offensive strategy against the Vikings who controlled Mercia. The city walls of London were repaired as the city slowly grew until about 950, when urban activity increased dramatically. A large Viking army that attacked the London borough was defeated in 994. By the 11th century, London was beyond all comparison to the largest town in England. Westminster Abbey, rebuilt in Romanesque style by King Edward the Confessor, was one of the grandest churches in Europe. Winchester had previously been the capital of Anglo Saxon England, but from this time on, London became the main forum for foreign traders and the base for defence in time of war. In the view of historians, it had the resources and was rapidly developing the dignity and the political self-consciousness appropriate to a national capital. The size and importance of London led to the redevelopment of the city's defences. During the early medieval period, following the Normans' conquest of England, the walls underwent substantial work that included additional gates and further towers and bastions. Aside from the 7 city wall gates and the 4 bars, there were 13 water gates on the Thames, where goods were uploaded from ships. These include Billingsgate and Bridgegate. Additionally, there were pedestrian-only gates, such as Tower Gate and the Postern Gate at the Tower of London. A further medieval defence feature was the restoration of the defence ditch immediately adjacent to the outside of the wall. The street name, Houndsditch, recalls a part of this former feature. This seems to have been recut in 1213, with the restored ditch being V-cut to a depth of 6 feet and a width of between 9 to 15 feet. It's possible that the recut of the ditch diverted some of the waters of the Walbrook, which would otherwise have flown through the city, and the wall itself does appear to have acted like a dam, partially obscuring the Walbrook and leading to the marshy conditions and open space of Moorfields, which lay just north of the wall. As London continued to grow throughout the medieval period, urban development grew beyond the city walls. This expansion led to the suffix words without and within, which denote whether an area of the city, and usually applied to the wards, fell outside or within the London wall. Though only Farringdon, and formerly Bridge, have been split into separate wards this way, Bridge without falling beyond the gates on London Bridge. Some wards, Aldersgate, Bishopsgate and Cripplegate, cover an area that was both within and outside the wall, and, although not split into separate wards, often the part within the wall is denoted on maps and documents as being within, and part outside the wall as without. The suffix is applied to some churches and parishes near the city gateways, such as St Odian within Newgate, or St Bolatoff without Bishopsgate. The layout of the Roman and medieval walls have had profound effect on the development of London, even down to the present day. The walls constrain the growth of the city, and the location of a number of the gates and the route of the roads through them shape the development within the walls, and in a much more fundamental way beyond them. With a few exceptions, the parts of the modern road network heading into the former walled area are the same as those which passed through the former medieval gates. The gates and their associated roads are outlined clockwise from the west to east. Routes to Westminster and the Roman road network, Ludgate, Fleet Street and the Strand. Newgate, High Holborn and Oxford Street with access to the Devil's Highway to Silchester and Bath, and Watling Street to St Albans and the West Midlands. Routes north over Finsbury Fields and Moorfields, with direct access to more local routes. Aldersgate, route to the London Charterhouse, Clerkenwell and Islington. Cripplegate to Finsbury. Moorgate. Until 1415, this was a small postern leading into marshy Moorfields area of Finsbury. The wet conditions were probably caused by the wall partially obstructing the flow of the Walbrook. Moorgate remained ill-connected with no direct approach road from the south until 1846, some time after the wall had been demolished. Roads east of Walbrook. Gates which latterly opened onto the east end of London with access to the Roman road network. Bishopsgate, Shoreditch High Street and Ermine Street, leading to Lincoln and York. Aldgate, Whitechapel Road and the start of the Roman road to Essex and East Anglia via Stratford and Colchester. Tower Hill postern. At the end of the medieval wall, at its junction with the Tower of London moat, its foundations can still be seen. The boundaries of the City of London ceased to coincide with the old city wall as the city expanded its jurisdiction during the medieval period. The city's jurisdiction expanded westwards, crossing the historic western border of the original settlement, the River Fleet, along Fleet Street to Temple Bar. The city also took in the other city bars, toll gates which were situated just beyond the Old Ward area, Holborn Bar, West Smithfield Bar, and Whitechapel Bar. These were important entrances to the city, and their control was vital in maintaining the city's special privileges over certain trades. During the Great Fire of London in September 1666, almost all of the medieval City of London inside the wall was destroyed. The 7 gates to the City of London, with many repairs and rebuilding over the years, stood until they were all demolished between 1760 and 1767. Work to demolish the walls continued into the 19th century. However, large sections of the wall are incorporated into other structures. Some of the most noticeable ruins in the bomb-damaged city during the Blitz in the Second World War were remnants of London's city wall. All that remains of the wall are few, some of which can be seen in the grounds of the Museum of London, in the Barbican Estate and around Tower Hill. A section near the Museum of London was revealed at Noble Street after the devastation of an air raid on the 29th of December 1940 at the height of the Blitz. Another visible section is at St Alfred's Gardens, and other sections form part of the walls or foundations of modern buildings and are only visible from just inside those buildings. One of the largest and most readily accessed fragments of the wall stands just outside Tower Hill Tube Station, with a replica statue of the Emperor Tarzan standing in front of it. There is a further surviving section preserved in the basement of One America Square building. There are further remains in the basement of the Old Bailey. In 1984, the Museum of London set up a wall walk from the Tower of London to the museum using 23 tiled panels. A number of these have been destroyed in subsequent years. At Noble Street, the panels are replaced by etched glass panels. These were intended as a prototype for new panels along the entire walk, but no further replacements have been made. Part of the route originally taken by the Northern Wall is commemorated, although now only loosely followed, by road also named London Wall, on which the Museum of London is located. The modern road starts in the west with the Rotunda Junction at Aldersgate, then runs east past Moorgate, from which point it runs parallel to the line of the city wall, and eventually becomes Wormwood Street, before it reaches Bishopsgate. This alignment, however, is the result of rebuilding between 1957 and 1976. Before this, London Wall was narrower and ran behind the line of the city wall for its entire length, from Wormwood Street to Wood Street. The western section is now St Alfred's Garden. The wall's moat forms the street of Houndsditch. This was once London's main rubbish disposal site and was notorious for its appalling odour. Its name, according to the 16th century historian John Snow, was derived from that in old time, when the same lay open, much filth conveyed forth of the city, especially dead dogs, were there laid or cast. The moat was finally covered over and filled in at the end of the 16th century, becoming the line of the aforementioned street. So, I hope you've enjoyed our trip back through history and looking specifically at the London Wall. Whatever podcast service you use to listen to this, please do subscribe to get updates on new shows, and also please do leave us some feedback. Also, you can let me know any places you'd like us to feature in future podcasts, and you can let me know through our website www.londonvisited.co.uk, by emailing me directly on londonvisited@gmail.com, or you can contact us on Twitter and Instagram on @LondonVisited, or Facebook on @TheLondonVisited. Thanks for listening, and really hope you enjoyed our podcast, and we'll see you soon on the next one. Bye!